throwing myself into the ocean off a jet ski on my birthday. That was great. Like nothing mattered. I'm here in the ocean. Yeah, it was all sea, just nothing else. Ja, dat was echt zo leuk.
Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Right Feeling podcast. In this episode, we'll be exploring the subject of dating in your 20s. Funny enough, this is my last year of my 20s, so I definitely need to put this out before my birthday. And I am speaking with my very good friend Marco, aka Marquito. Marco and I met back in London when I was doing my master's. He is originally from Italy, and Marco and I always have very interesting conversations about love and relationships. I think it's interesting to hear a man's perspective on dating in your 20s, and also, obviously, my perspective as a woman. So I hope that you enjoy this episode, and I'll check back in with you at the very end. So, Marco, welcome to the podcast.
Hello everybody, I'm Marco.
So, Marco, what are we going to talk about?
We will be talking about dating in our 20s.
I was telling you before we started recording that for me, this is kind of a time capsule too. What have we learned dating in our 20s? And then I want to do another one a few years from now, maybe late 30s? No. Let's do our mid 30s.
Oh, you never know, maybe late 30s, we're still out in the field, you know?
Maybe we should do mid 30s and then late 30s.
Yeah, I think
don't know.
5 years time frames are a good period.
So maybe it'd be good to establish some context to our listeners, like what is dating?
Interesting question. I think everybody has a different approach to dating, and each person uses it to different meanings, like just to have a good night of fun or really to look for a partner in life, or some people are just bored, really, and just do it for that. Or some people are just a bit afraid to be alone, and so they constantly need to have someone by their side. I think I've seen that a lot. For me, I don't know, I do it half and half. Like, I've had a serious relationship, like, a while back now, almost 7-8 years ago now.
And you guys were together for...
We were together for 3 years. And then after that, well, I had a rough 6 months, 8 months after that. Since then, I started dating a bit on and off. Never got too serious with anyone, I have to say. I use dating as a way of getting to know more about myself. As in, I like the way it challenges you to get out of your comfort zone. Especially me, I'm not a very extrovert person. I don't like to talk too much and everything. And being a little bit of an introvert myself, it pushed me to learn how to make small talk. Sometimes you go out, you have a bad date, and you're stuck there for like the next 2 hours, and you gotta come up with something to make time go by, you know? Or like sometimes you go out with people and you actually have fun with people, with a certain kind of people that you would never expect them to be your type, you know? And it's also a way to discover what you like in a relationship, what you don't, explore some things that maybe you don't even know they existed before, and like try things out. Maybe you like them, maybe you don't, but I think it's the way I used it to, again, get to know more about myself and overall, I think be more complete in a way. What about you?
For me, I'm not really a dater. I don't really like dating. I guess I was dating more for a relationship than it was just to kind of get to know someone, you know, and then, oh, that's it, like 2 dates. But because people have different approaches to dating, I think actually something very important as, I guess, a rule to dating is to establish those expectations in the beginning.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the concept of a player versus someone. Okay, I'm going to just be honest, Marco. Some people could assume or perceive the way you date as more of a player in a way.
Yeah. I've been told that, yes.
I think the difference between a player and someone who is dating because he enjoys or she enjoys the process of dating and getting to know different people, I think it's about establishing those expectations from the beginning.
Yeah.
We've had conversations before, and you pretty much almost always establish those expectations.
Yeah, exactly. I try to do, well, the first couple of dates I go with a person, I try to not have expectations. I just go there to meet, to get to know the person and see what the feeling is.
Imagine the first date. So are you looking to get married?
Actually, one of the best first dates I've ever had was with a girl who very straight ahead said, I want this, this, and that. What about you? And we had this conversation like, I don't know, in the first hour after meeting each other.
Did it align with what you wanted?
Yeah. She was just there for like a couple of months in Switzerland. So there was a very set time frame and it aligned with me. And it was, from that point on, it all went very smoothly because the conversation had been taken out of the way, and then we could just enjoy our relationship very nicely. But well, aside from that, it's first couple of dates is more usually to get to know the other person, especially if you date on the apps. At least for me, the first date you go out with these strangers, which you know more or less the way the person looks like, and you've texted a bit on the apps for a while, so it's always a bit random. I find it actually. But then after that, you go out a bit, and then if I feel like there can be something more, maybe I wait and see how it goes. If not, I say it straight away. For me, it helps a lot because then I feel like I've done my part, you know, and I've set my boundaries. She knows what I am looking for. But a situation I've had very often is when I tell the person, listen, maybe I don't want something too serious here. I hope you're fine with it. The situation I've had very often is this person being like, oh, okay, that's perfectly fine. I'm also not looking for anything serious. But then... Exactly. So I think it's important to establish boundaries, but it's also very important to be clear, to be honest to yourself. Are these boundaries that this other person is setting good for me? How much am I willing to commit or to deceive myself just to hope that these boundaries will change in time, you know?
Well, that's also the thing about dating, right? On one hand, it could be someone was genuinely okay with that at the beginning, but then as they got to know you more, maybe they start really liking you and being able to see something more serious together with you. So maybe that ends up changing, you know, that management, or I guess their expectations started to change as your relationship deepens. But I think there's also, on the other side, maybe people who hope that you would change your mind, you know what I mean? And they kind of just accept it in the beginning. And sometimes it's not even conscious, right? In the past, when I was younger, I definitely had this subconscious hope, this kind of subconscious desire that, oh, the guy I liked, you know, I told him that I liked him, and, you know, he told me he wasn't really that interested. He's like, yeah, I'm just not looking for a relationship right now, but I would be there to be supportive, and I was hoping that something was going to change, but I wouldn't admit it, or I wouldn't be honest with it. And so when nothing changed, I would get frustrated, right?
Yeah.
Because you still have that subconscious hope.
Of course, but that's on you, not on the other person. That's something you need to work. Yeah. Someone told me once that you should not fall in love with the potential your partner can be, but with the person the partner is at this moment. Like, you cannot build a relationship with someone expecting the other person to become the person you like. But you just try to be as real, as realistic as possible, and check on yourself and be like, who is this person and who do I want? How much overlap is there within these two? If there's not enough, don't hope for there to be more, you know? Just
yeah. And, you know, if this relationship doesn't work out, or there's so many other people that will fit your needs, right? Yeah. And it's really about finding what fits your needs. And I think a lot of people struggle with identifying what they need or being honest with themselves about what they need. At least in their 20s.
Oh, definitely.
I don't know about 30s.
I think 20s is also... that's going to be for the next episode. I think what's interesting, very peculiar about dating in the 20s specifically is that it's still a decade where we as people change a lot. Grow a lot, so mature a lot. Yeah. That's in general, aside from dating itself. It's, you know, it's when you first move out from your parents' home, maybe you go to university, you move maybe abroad, or you change city, you get to know new people, you start to experience the world as an adult, you start to have new responsibilities, and maybe you start earning some money on your own, so you're more freedom to go do what you want and meet new people and everything. And by itself is already a decade where you as a person grow a lot and mature a lot. So it's also hard on one hand to know what you want in your 20s, because how can you know if you don't even know who you are yet, or like what you're looking for, you know?
Yeah.
Dating can be part of it, also can help you grow. But for some, I feel like, at least, maybe this is gonna sound bad to some people, but like, I know people who have been in long relationships. Now they're maybe in their late 20s. They still are with their high school sweetheart, which is amazing, and it's super cute thing. But it's also like you grow up and you get to learn love, both in a romantic way and in a more sexual way, always with the same person. So your experience is very limited in that sense. And it's, for some people it's good and they don't need more, and that's perfectly fine. But I think it's also nice to explore and get across the whole spectrum of romanticism, love, and sex, so that you know where you stand, what you like, what you don't like.
I mean, I think as you were saying earlier, everybody has this kind of different approach to dating, right? So they also grow with one another in different life stages. So maybe they don't explore other people, but they explore each other in a very different context as they're growing, you know?
Yeah.
And I think for some people that totally works, but then for others, you know, it doesn't. So
yeah, of course, yeah. But sometimes if you get stuck with the same person, even especially if that person is not really good for you, that kind of prevents you from growing in a certain way and like to fulfill your full potential, if you want. Like it's normal if you have a relationship, a deep one, especially for a long time, it's normal in the end that the other person starts affecting you, the way you grow, the way you see things around you and everything. And that's brilliant, especially if there's this connection so deep that really the person becomes so important to you. But I think there's the risk, if you want, that like you develop following the pattern somehow, the influence set by the other person. And then at the end, after 10 years of relationship, you are, I don't know, 30, 32, and you're like, fine, like that's so nice, but there's so many other things I could have done, I could have explored. And then
the resentment comes in.
Exactly. I've had people like, this is in their early 20s, that they've broken up with their high school sweethearts with whom they've been for 5-6 years. One of the reasons was exactly this. I had this friend who told me, listen, we've been together for like 7 years now. I still like her and everything, but it's just, I'm 24 now, and like there are so many things I want to do. I want to move abroad, study a bit abroad, and then explore new things, try out new things. And I've broken up with her just exactly because I want to experience this. And while she wants to stay more here in my hometown here, she's more doesn't want to move much, and therefore she's gonna limit me. I feel like she limits me a lot, and I think it's fair. It's a fair reason, let's say, to break up a relationship, because if you're not comfortable in it, if you feel like you're not expressing your full potential in a relationship, then there's no point for that relationship to be there in the first place, I think.
It's very true. For me, relationships have always been, I don't want to be with somebody that brings me down. You know, I feel that healthy relationships are about mutual support and helping one another grow and really challenging us to become better people. That won't always be the case. You know, there will probably be ugly moments too. Yeah. But for the most part, for me, it's always about a mutual dynamic of support and growth. And I feel and I see that a lot of relationships, because there's the security that comes with being with someone that you've known for so long, and you know they love you and you know you love that person, but sometimes you know you both perhaps want different things, but because of that security, you're afraid to leave that relationship. And in the end, you both end up becoming quite toxic for one another because you're not being honest with yourself with what you want to pursue, right? Yeah. So I think that in the case of these friends that you have mentioned, Marco, it's like they just identified a different need that they had, and then they kind of grew out of that relationship. That doesn't mean that in the end they can't come back together, I don't know, maybe 30s or 40s or something. But right now, this is the kind of life that they feel they need, right? And so I think that's also completely fine, right? It's just also, again, about being honest with your partner. So similarly, it goes back to dating. It's always important to be honest about what you want. Even if you don't know what you want, you can also be honest about that.
Yeah, so you can just say, I don't know what you want and I'm not sure this is what I want.
Honestly, for me, it's helped so much when a guy that I date establishes those expectations, because otherwise for me, I'm kind of the type that I have my people-pleasing tendencies that that I'm slowly starting to grow out of.
I've heard.
But because I people please, I sometimes do this thing where I'm thinking, oh, what does the guy want? And then it almost saturates my expectations, and I start overthinking about what they want, what should I do? And if there's no establishment of those expectations, my brain goes into overdrive, and it's not nice.
Not at all, not at all.
No. But once the expectations are set, I'm like, okay, I'm good. And I can just enjoy the dynamic for whatever that is.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. That's really wise verse, I think, in any kind of relationship, even friendship. Like, I think this is going to sound selfish maybe, but I think it's important that you know yourself first, you know what you want, what boundaries, what are you willing to accept, and what are you willing to commit to that relationship. And yet that you're open about it with your partner so that you can actually enjoy it in a very nice way. Because like, if not, it's really... I've had a couple of times where like I started to feel uncomfortable because I could feel that she was getting more and more into me while I was not. And I had been very clear, this is going to sound bad, but...
Go on, no judgment, Marco, no judgment.
But even though I had been very clear about it, right? That I wasn't looking for anything. And we talked about it. She said she was not feeling more than before. So maybe, I don't know if it was just me imagining things. But I don't know, at a certain point it just became... I started to feel very uncomfortable in that relationship. Because I really felt like she was putting in way more effort and attention into the relationship than I was, and the relationship really became unbalanced, you know? Like, I was up high here, I could do whatever I wanted and she would still follow me regardless of whatever I said or did.
Oh,
you know, like,
I see.
Yeah. And that really felt very bad, and then at a certain point I was the one who ended it, who cut it off. But to me, I find it weird because I feel like, of course, from my very egoistic and selfish point of view, being in that situation where you're dating someone who really looks up to you, admires you and everything, and it's a good position to be, in a sense. Like, I have this relationship, I have this person who was always there for me no matter what I do, and it's perfect. While for her, that is a bad position to stand. So for me, I felt like it would have been more on her, like her responsibility, if you want, to acknowledge what our relationship had become and end it, because it clearly was not good. But in the end, I was the one who ended it. And it's, how can I say, I felt like, this sounds bad, but like I did her side of the job. Like, I took responsibility for her somehow, which maybe was unasked for, maybe. And
I wonder how much of that is... Because, okay, now I'm just going to play not devil's advocate, but challenge you a little bit.
Yeah, that's good.
I can see when sometimes, for example, for me, when I'm dating someone, sometimes I do things that other people are like, oh my God, that's like girlfriend status stuff, you know? But for me, I just do something because I want to do it, but not because I feel any pressure from the other side. It's not even about showing or expressing how much I like someone. It's just, I do it because I feel like it, you know? But I understand from the outside, sometimes that can be perceived as if, oh shit, this girl really likes me and she's willing to do so much for me, you know? I'm going to be honest, like I do that with all my friends, like people that are in my life. That's just what I do. But I can understand when people have this misinterpretation of what my actions are, because I guess conventionally, if a girl does something, I don't know, cooks you a dinner or something like that, it's like, oh my God, she must really like me. Like, yeah, no, I mean, you know, you got to look at that person and the actions for who that person actually is, right? So I don't know, maybe if she had told you, it could be that she wasn't being honest with herself or she didn't realize how much she actually liked you. It could very well be.
Yeah.
But it could also be that that's just how she is and she didn't really think much of it. You know, it didn't mean that your dynamic meant that she wanted a more serious relationship. But I don't know the details. And of course, I guess you do kind of feel it when you're in that dynamic.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Maybe, yeah. I guess it goes back to being very honest, again, with yourself and also with the other partner. Maybe we should have been more honest to each other. I don't know. I feel like we talked. But it's very true. Like, I see your point. As long as you do something that makes you happy, that just because you want to do it, not necessarily because you feel like you have to, because it's your status or whatever, I think that's good. You shouldn't feel afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's also a whole set of predefined actions that are embedded into the dating dynamics, let's say. Like from a society point of view. Now, it depends really from culture to culture, but like you said, for example, people are not too direct in dating. Maybe if they set boundaries straight away, it would be nice. I know many people who don't like that, who wouldn't like that, because like the girls I dated which were very direct, for example, were always more from the northern side of Europe, for example. While the southern part, Mediterranean, we have more this idea of like, you know, dating more like flirting, where, you know, you say but you don't say, you hint at something but then you also don't, and it's this game that goes around for a while, and then the guy needs to make the move, and then also in the relationship there's this built-in idea of like the guy being like maybe like the strong one who doesn't really talk much about feelings and stuff, while the girl is the one who brings out the feelings and tries to build the emotional intimacy.
Why does it
and
sound
everything.
like a movie? Why does it sound like such a
Yeah,
classic?
exactly. That tells you a lot. I think this also affects how honest we are with each other. Sometimes I had a talk with some friends recently about it. Like me personally, and I see it with many other guys, I find it hard to initiate emotional talk in a relationship. You see what I mean? Like if I'm in a relationship and I want to say something important about maybe how I feel or something about the relationship, I find it hard to initiate that kind of conversation. While even though I know it's something very good for me, and once I've had that kind of talk, I feel so relieved. But I always find it way easier if it's the girl that does it, initiates. Also, yeah, if the girl tells me something important about her, very intimate, let's say, and only after that I share something about myself as well, which is a very bad dynamic, you see, but it's...
Maybe that's also part of your introversion though, because I know I'm a little like that too. Of course, there probably is the expectations from society, and I think maybe men have generally a more difficult time expressing certain emotions. But I think it's also individual. Like, it's just easier when somebody else is vulnerable first.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
It's just like, okay, all right, you've taken the first step, I'll take the next step.
Yeah, it's true. Of course, there's individual variability. But I think as a trend, you could say that, yeah, in general, men are or are brought up to be less emotional, to show less their emotion, and girls more. And then this affects also the dating dynamics in general, I think, how honest we are with each other. I think I find it harder if it's with someone I care more about. Because then I'm exposing myself to someone that I really like, and that let's say if it's someone I don't like too much, I mean, I say what I have to say and that's it. It's like, this again sounds bad maybe, but while with someone else I find it hard because there's also more things to lose. Exactly, more at stake. Like, what if I say this and then she doesn't agree or whatever, she doesn't like me back, all this kind of overthinking sets in, you know? So it's harder to initiate that kind of talk in that case. So you just have to find the right moment, convince yourself, first of all, that it's a good thing, and then take the courage and go for it. And there's never going to be the perfect moment, you know? You just got to go for it.
You know what's interesting? Now that we're talking about this gender dynamics, at least in heterosexual relationships, right? I find a lot of my female friends, we expect the men to make the first move. So the grabbing of the hand, you know, the initiation of a kiss, you know, stuff like that. Maybe it's because we're in our 20s, but I feel that now that I'm in the later stages of my 20s, almost now in my 30s, I feel a bit more empowered to make the first move.
Yeah,
you know?
that's good, yeah.
I would actually challenge all of us to kind of move past the gender dynamics and just be clear about what you want, because I feel that not only is it helpful for the other person to know, some people can read in other person's expressions or their gestures pretty well, but no one's in your head. No one knows exactly what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So just being clear about what you want or what you need is so helpful. And then also for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what people need to realize. It's helpful for your partner, but for you in the first place as well, because then you feel, as you said, you feel liberated after you said what you want, what your boundaries are, what your expectations are. It's so much better afterwards.
Yeah. I heard some, not studies, but there's been talk that younger generations have a hard time being more upfront in someone's face.
Mm-hmm.
They always kind of slide in the DMs, or they're so used to social interaction online that they're not so used to confronting in person.
Especially our generation with all social media, WhatsApp and everything, it's easy to get to know a person more gradually. So let's say first with some texts or messages on some dating app or whatever, before you actually go out and have a natural date with someone you see him or her in person. While, I don't know, back then, like a generation ago, 50 years ago, whatever, they didn't have all this, so...
Sometimes it is easier online, and I think that's why dating apps helps so many people. Using Tinder or Hinge or, any of the other apps would introduce you to people that you maybe would never even come across, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But for me, it's just... oh my God, it's so exhausting talking on these dating apps because I just feel like it's like a game,
Yeah.
And it's, I hate it. It just takes so much energy from me.
No, but I get it. It's really like you waste so much time on those apps and like you match with, I don't know, 100 different profiles. You start talking to 80, only half of them replies, and then of all that you get out 3 dates. It's a lot of wasted time there. The overall yield is pretty low, and it's what for? But it's good. I like it because it's, as you said, you get to come across so many more people than you would in your normal life, and it's weird. The first date can be awkward sometimes because again you meeting basically a stranger, of which you know basically nothing about. But from the second date onwards, I think the dynamics are more or less the same as a person that you met, let's say, more organically or whatever.
Organically. Yeah, I guess for me, it's because I like the curiosity that comes from an organic interaction, in that when you're on an app, you kind of know something about that person already based on how they present themselves, in their pictures and their bio and their interests and stuff like that. And I don't know, I like the idea of not really knowing who this person is and feeling an interest, but not being sure exactly what I feel, and not knowing, is this person also interested? Because again, on apps, you're interested in one another.
At least physically, at least, yeah.
Sometimes that can be a bit toxic,
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think that in organic interactions, I like that curiosity that comes from not exactly knowing who that person is, but finding something, and you're not sure what it is, but something you're attracted to or you find interesting, and kind of pursuing that and unraveling that a little bit more. I like that a lot. I mean, I know that that's not what usually happens, That's a very rare occasion when you are able to explore that. And
yeah, I find it quite fascinating as well how you can meet basically a stranger again from the app, and then on the first time just start chatting a bit. You start with small talk, right? And then you somehow manage to find some common ground, some common interest and everything, and then that gets everything started, and then through that you get to learn a bit about the person and everything. And it's actually quite interesting. It's an interesting way to interact with someone, to get to know someone, while on a, say, more normal organic date, now we're using this word, organic, it's easier in the sense that you usually have some common friends, or it's someone you met at the gym or whatever, so you already know you have some shared interest and everything, so there's already a base to build upon, so it's it tends to make things easier. But I think it also sets higher expectations, maybe.
It could be. I mean, the last two actual like relationships that I've met organically, I didn't know, like we had nobody in common. We just met at a random conference. Oh, I know. I guess like we did have someone in common.
No, okay, but if you meet people randomly in the street or at an event, how is that any different from meeting someone on an app?
Very true. I also feel though something interesting about the gradual getting to know one another process. I think for me, before the last 2 years, my approach to dating, like I always thought if I knew, I knew. Like I will know, you know? And
Yeah.
and then my last two relationships has been based off of the connection, you know, where like, oh my God, maybe this is the guy, you know, maybe I don't believe in the one, but you know, it's just it's this feeling as if this person's gonna mean so much to your life. It sounds so weird to say it because it kind of sounds crazy actually.
Yeah.
It felt like I knew that this was going to be something. And I think that now I've kind of changed my philosophy on that, obviously, for a good reason, I think. But it's because I see my friendships and I see how my closest friendships, I didn't necessarily click with them in the very beginning, you know? Mm-hmm. It was a gradual get to know each other process and the building of experience with one another to get to know one another, and that experience creates a trust between the two of you, and then that generated into this strong connection that you or we, you know, you and me have now, right? Because I remember in the beginning, Marco, we didn't really...
Yeah, no, it took a while to warm to each other. But I think, so if I can jump in, that works well for friendships. But like, would you, like, for example, the two of us, we got to know in London, but we became more friends during my first year in Switzerland, actually. So almost a year went by from the moment we met until we actually became closer. Would you date someone for a year, hoping and waiting for a deeper connection to develop? I see what you mean, but I think it's important for that connection to develop relatively soon. It's like, at least for me, otherwise I'm not willing to put in all the effort to keep dating that person if there's not really...
For me, I don't know. I think I am okay with it as long as I enjoy spending time with that person. I think in the past I wouldn't invest my time, quote unquote, like that. Dating has now become something where I'm enjoying the experiences that I'm having with the person, and maybe I'm just in a mode where let's just see where things go, because I guess I'm just sick of overthinking about everything, Marco.
Yeah.
And I think I've been in that stage where I was in a long-term relationship and I felt like I was going to be with this person for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, and now I haven't met anybody that's like stirred me yet. That hasn't like made me feel that connection. But now I think I'm just questioning that connection, because maybe that connection doesn't have to be a requisite for a relationship for me. And now I'm just seeing where things go and exploring different types of relationships to also explore what it is that I want in the end. So coming back full circle to what you had said, you know.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, I see that. Like, I think, again, going back to what we said, it's important to know what you look for in a relationship. Whether this connection or not is important, for example, it's something you can figure out very easily by dating a few different people. And then it's up to fate to bring you the right person that ticks all the boxes.
Then Marco, will you let yourself fall in love with somebody and actually enter into a steady relationship if you come across it? And when you're finally ready for that in your life stage, you know?
I hope so. yeah. I mean, I've done it first. I've done it once already. Why not? I mean, I see myself in my 30s at some time, like building a family, you know, and like settling down and everything. But one thing I've always been afraid of doing is doing that without knowing really what I want, and without having experienced different things and like learning more about me. Because then, how can you give your whole self to someone else if you don't know who you are in the first place, you know? And I think for me, it's important, at least the way I used my 20s is also, again, dating, exploring different things and learning about myself, so that once you meet that special person, you're also ready to commit. And you don't sometimes, get into this super serious relationship when you are 18, 20, 22, whatever. Then 15, 20 years later, maybe you have a family and everything, and you realize, where has my life led me? Like, I had maybe all these dreams, all these things I wanted to do, to explore, and I haven't done them. For some people, maybe it's okay, but for me, I think it's important to know I can express my full potentials in a relationship, or before, I don't know, like not being constrained,
As you're saying this, I just felt a little concern like pop up in my head, I guess. Like a little concern that because it's a fear, I think sometimes fear has a large role in preventing us from also being able to experience something, right? Because figuring out what you want and exploring your full potential, I think that's very important. But I think that will also be a never-ending process, right?
Yeah.
Growth is not, you don't flatten out. I mean, in your 20s for sure, you have this kind of exponential kind of seeming growth, and then you kind of level out a little bit, but you're always growing as a person,
But I think also you can also grow while you are in a relationship. So like the two things are not mutually exclusive. Like, of course, you can have a relationship with a person and still grow, but I think it's important to find that person that lets you grow. It gives you the freedom to do what you want, explore what you want, and with whom you are happy to share the new things you learned about yourself and all these kind of things.
Do you think, though, Marco, that you're trying to find that when you're dating? Because I assume that when you're dating now, it's like a relationship is kind of out of the question because you have the idea that you don't want to settle down now, especially because, you're in a transition kind of part of your life. You're almost finishing your PhD.
Yeah.
You don't know where you're going to be. Are you going to be in Switzerland, South America?
Exactly. I don't know. Until the first half, 3/4 of my PhD, I was really not interested in a relationship in general, also during my master. So I was very happy to date and meet new people and explore and everything. I was very happy with either outcome, but like in generally not looking for anything too serious. Like I was genuinely happy being single. Now slowly, like I feel like I'm slowly starting to shift to a mindset of, if something more serious comes my way, I see myself giving it a shot, at least, or like exploring a bit more and see how it's gonna lead me. I see myself doing that, now, yes.
But see, the question is, Marco, because you and I have already said like, you see what happens, or if something comes my way. But then at what point do you have, I'm also asking this question for myself, like your own agency, and like if a serious relation comes along, a large part of it is your own agency in deciding that you want that and you pursue that, right? The quote unquote perfect girl or the perfect guy could come along, you know, and they give you so much space to grow. You guys are just vibing, everything's good. But if that person is like the right person for that time in your life, you also have to be open to it yourself.
Yeah, but it's true. We talked about this before. Like, it's very easy to self-sabotage yourself, and just put barriers and be like, no, she has this quality which I don't like, or she doesn't have this, she doesn't have that. And so like overthinking your relationship so much that in the end you end them, while maybe there was no real need for it. But just because subconsciously you don't want to build something stable that is going to keep you tied to a specific place you don't like.
It really is self-sabotaging in some ways. But I think what most people do when they close off, it's because they aren't honest with the other person about where they exactly are. Because maybe, you are open to getting into a more serious relationship, but maybe you need more time. Maybe you're not sure exactly if you can give 100% into a relationship yet. And that's okay. Just talk it out. Just say it, and then the other person can also say, oh, well, I kind of want someone who's 100%. Or if that person's fine with 80%, then at least you both have established that, Oh,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, I think it is about that kind of honesty. And maybe in that honesty, that's where the agency kind of comes in, right? Like your self-agency and allowing yourself to kind of pursue the relationship.
Well, it's true that, I mean, if you're not ready, or you don't know you're ready, or you're not really thinking about it yet, of course, the good person, the perfect match can come your way and nothing can happen. Or maybe you date and then you part ways just because you are not ready, or in that moment you don't want a serious relationship.
But then, you know, in that way, that person already isn't your quote unquote perfect match.
Yeah, exactly. But maybe because in that specific moment of your life you don't have, or you don't want a perfect match, because you're perfectly enjoying your life alone and you don't need anyone else at that point of your life, and that's perfectly fine. I think it's actually very nice if you, at least for a certain time of your life, you're willing to live alone and like build a solid foundation so that you're able then to share this foundation with someone else. Well, I think many people rush into something sometimes without having that foundation, and maybe sometimes they expect the other person to provide that foundation for themselves. Some really bad and toxic dynamics can develop there in that case.
So Marco, to wrap up, what do you think is the right feeling in the world of dating in your 20s?
Happiness, I would say. If you find someone or doing something with someone that makes you happy, I think as long as you get the good feeling of happiness, of being like, I'm enjoying the moment, I like what I'm doing right now, and this feels good to me, then go for it. What about you?
For me, I would say honesty.
But honestly, it's not a feeling.
That's true. But it's the feeling, like liberation. That's the feeling.
Okay. Oh, okay, good.
Because because I think that when you're honest, at least when I've been honest, it really, that liberating feeling, oh my God, Marco, just, it's an ecstasy for me. You know? Like it really, I don't know, just being able to express yourself honestly and what you want to somebody. Maybe it's just because I've never really done that before, you know, maybe that's why it's a new feeling for me. And so that's what makes me more excited about it. But I really think, liberation and honesty, at least now in my late 20s, is what gives me the right feeling in my relationships, my dating relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, I think I mentioned happiness because so many times I was not living the moment. Like I was happy, but I was overthinking. Like, oh my God, I'm feeling happy. This feels good. Where is this leading? Oh my God.
Talk about self-sabotage.
And well, I think it's important to recognize that you're feeling happy and like let yourself be happy as well. You know, you deserve that, and don't overthink. Just if it's good, it's good.
Oh God, not overthinking.
Oh my God.
Good luck.
That's a whole new episode for the next time.
I hope that you enjoyed that podcast episode. I'm actually very curious to see how dating in our 30s will be. So good luck for all my single ladies and gents out there. You just stay true to yourself, to your values, to what you want. And I know that's easier said than done, but it is so much more rewarding. In the next episode, I'm joined by my friend Felipe on the subject of contentment in moderation. If you enjoy this podcast, please feel free to share it with your friends, family, partner, or whoever. I do have a slightly inactive Instagram at therightfeeling_, or a very early YouTube channel, also at therightfeeling_. And if you're gonna kick it old school and email me, 100% fine. You can email me at Jane, that's Jane, at therightfeeling.org. All right, guys, I can't wait to feel the feels with you in the next episode.